For decades, we were fed a steady diet of For decades, we were fed this steady diet of apocalyptic panic about overpopulation, but the new data is in, and humanity isn't growing too fast. Actually, we are sprinting face first off a demographic cliff. Global fertility rates are collapsing, but let's clear something up right away. It's not really a fertility crisis in the medical sense though, is it? People aren't suddenly becoming biologically infertile because there's something in the water. I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
But you get my point, okay? This is not an epidemic of broken reproductive organs. It's a crisis of choice. People are actually choosing not to have kids. If you watch the mainstream media, the debate is basically deadlocked. Radical feminist ideology, digital isolation, and the state has effectively sterilized my generation. Let's look at the hard data. To keep a population stable without relying on immigration, a society needs a replacement rate of 2.1 births per woman. Right now, nearly the entire developed world is basically well below that line. South Korea is sitting at a catastrophic 0.72, but the biggest shockwave in the new data, the global south has joined this collapse. Take India. For years, Western elites basically panicked over India's population explosion. Well, the latest data shows that India's national total fertility rate has officially fallen to 1.9, well below the replacement threshold. And the regional divide in India is staggering. If you look at India's urban centres and major hubs, well, they were basically below replacement already. Delhi's fertility rate has basically cratered to 1.2. So that's lower than Finland. Wealthier, more educated southern states like Tamil Nadu and Kerala are down to 1.3. So the only places that are keeping the numbers as high as they are because of rural pockets like in Bihar at 2.7, which is quite a bit. And even those are falling dramatically fast. And the story is the exact same across Latin America and East Asia. So it's not just happening in the West, it's actually a global phenomenon. So why is this happening? Yeah, well, let's call a spade a spade. It is basically modern feminism. It is a primary driver. For 2 generations at least, mainstream feminism has basically completely deconstructed the traditional family structure. So it's taught young women that motherhood is a trap, children are a burden to your career, and total liberation, if you want that, and you should want that, means sacrificing your reproductive years to some kind of corporate middle management cubicle. So what we did was we traded a multi-generational legacy in the form of children for short-term consumerism. And you can't talk about the missing pieces of my generation without addressing the elephant in the room that modern feminism has brought about, and that is abortion. 1/3 of my generation is dead. They were aborted. Millions of potential creators and builders and parents just never even got a chance to walk on this earth because abortion was rebranded as some form of social empowerment and healthcare. And when you start calling the murdering of children as healthcare, people are going to think that it's socially acceptable. But how does this manifest in your daily life? Well, take a look at the device in your hand. The iPhone or Samsung, as I've got, which is infinitely superior. Social media, dating apps haven't actually connected us. They've basically sterilized and got rid of our social skills. Ever since the transition to a phone-based childhood in the early 2010s, a generation in which I was a part of, youth mental health has plummeted, real-world intimacy has completely declined, and they're marrying much later, if at all. And algorithms are literally engineered to keep you isolated and to keep you scrolling, because a lonely single consumer spends way more money on digital dopamine than a married parent just buying diapers or nappies online. So what we've done is we've replaced this real world courtship that we've always had with some kind of digital simulation. When validation is so cheap via a screen, the hard, beautiful work of actually building a marriage, it just looks way too costly. It's too much effort. So the smartphone environment has basically become a psychological contraceptive. And this is where the state comes in. As someone who believes in economic freedom and free markets, this is what infuriates me the most, because the left thinks that the solution to fewer babies is more government, so more subsidies, free childcare, more welfare. But if you look at Europe or South Korea, they've spent hundreds of billions on state-sponsored pro-natalist programs, and their birth rates just kept on plummeting anyway, because the state itself is what is choking families and making them unable to have more kids. We've got zoning laws, especially in America. We've got green energy mandates, net zero. We've got regulations. We've got taxes that are basically through the roof. So governments have basically made housing artificially scarce because we don't build enough houses, and also they import massive amounts of unregulated immigration, which means that housing skyrockets in price. And we've basically made it completely unaffordable for a 25-year-old couple wanting to start a family. We've basically discouraged them. So the state has over-regulated everyday life, driving up the costs of education and childcare, while high taxes are penalizing the single-income households where a parent might just want to stay at home with the kids. You can't do that anymore. So the state has told young people, don't worry about family. The state welfare machine will take care of you when you're old. You know, you're just going to be single, stuck in a care home with your state pension, actually probably not even a state pension, because state pensions don't exist in the future. So the state is broken, and it's just broken our culture in the process. So they've just structurally sterilized my generation by pricing us out of the future. Thank you. If we want to survive this and we want to actually find a solution to our demographic crisis, we need to do three things. We must reject the feminist lie that family is a trap. And that also means acknowledging the fact that abortion is murder, because that's what it is. And killing 1/3 of my generation has not done anything good for the fertility rates. We need to reclaim the virtues of sacrifice and of marriage and of real-world community. Economically, what we need to do is get the state out of the way. We need to deregulate the housing market so young couples can actually buy a home. We need to deport a bunch of people so that housing prices aren't going out of the roof because of completely fake demand. And we also need to tax couples as a unified family unit so it's economically viable for a parent, for the mum, to stay at home. We don't need the nanny state to raise our kids. We need the freedom, we need the money, and we need the moral clarity to build the families ourselves. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time.